Hey everyone, so I'm going to be doing my first Mono 1 challenge, and it's going to be against the Elite Four of one of the most difficult and hardest Pokemon game of all time. But some people say that it is harder than Emerald Kaizo. And that game is Pokemon Radical Red. For what you guys don't know, Pokemon Radical Red is a ROM hack that is made by Supercell, which is based on the Pokemon Fire Red. However, the boss battles Pokemon are EV trained, have pretty good AI, and it's really difficult. Now with the introductions out of the way, let's talk about the simple question. What is a Mono 1 challenge? A Mono 1 challenge is where we have to make a team that consists of the same type, as the choice that is selected even if one Pokemon has two types. For example, we are going to be doing a Water Mono 1, and because of that, we have to make a team that consists of Pokemon that have the water typing. I also forgot to mention that we can't use any potions or revives in battle, so because of that, we can't stall / heal up. It's always going to be on set mode, which is fine because I was planning to do that anyway. And also, the only reason why I'm only facing the Elite Four is simply because of the fact that I want to try to do a Mono 1 with every type. And going through the entire game over and over again will indeed take forever, and I really don't have a lot of time to do that, especially if I'm trying to get content out. I really hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from. I am really looking forward to doing this series, and if you guys are looking forward to it as well, be sure you guys hit that like button if you guys enjoyed this video. It's easy as 1, 2, and 3, it doesn't cost you guys anything, and it helps show your support. And also make sure you guys hit that subscribe button as well, which is also as easy as 1, 2, and 3, and it doesn't bite you guys in the butt. Like a Sharpedo. And now, with all that said and done, with the beginning anyway, it's time for you guys to put on your Speedos, because it's time we take a dive, no pun intended, for us to meet our water type team. I just want to point something out here before we continue any further, and it's that we have access to every non-legendary Pokemon, and we can get legendary Pokemon in this game before we take on the Elite Four. But I will put all the legendary Pokemon that you can get in this game on screen right now, whether they're static encounters, roaming around, or raid battles. An interesting fact here, you could do raid battles in Radical Red, and I really like that about this game. And so, for the water team, I had to try to come up with a team that can counter the Elite Four's Pokemon, and so this is what I came up with. So I have Buff Kid the Swampert with the Adamant Nature, with a plus attack and speed, with the moves Stealth Rock, Liquidation, Ice Punch, and Earthquake. My main purpose is to Mega Evolve into Mega Swampert, set up Stealth Rocks, and do tons of damage, especially with the fact that Mega Swampert has the Swift Swim ability. Next up, we have Shrinking the Water Wash with the Timid Nature and Holding the Leftovers. This is a reoccurring thing here because we're gonna need all the plus speed we can get so that we can outspeed the Elite Four's Pokemon, especially since they're all EV trained. Anyways, Rotom W has the moves Will-O-Wisp, Hydro Pump, Thunder, and Pain Split. My main purpose is to deal with Loli's water type team, and also burn against Bruno and hopefully Lance. And Pain Split, which will come in clutch later on in the video, so keep that in mind. Next up, we have Hinata the Protein Greninja, again with the Timid Nature, holding the Life Orb with Scald, Ice Beam, Dark Pulse, and Grass Knot. Grass Knot is used for Loli's water type team, Ice Beam for Lance, Dark Pulse for Agatha, and Scald for Burn. We have Jumpy Jump the Politoed with a Damp Block. I'm not a big fan of Politoed, but I do need a Pokemon with Drizzle, and the only other option is Pelipper, but I think Politoed is at least a little bit more bulkier than Pelipper. I decided to have the Calm Nature so that my Politoed could at least take special hits, and Politoed will just be slow anyway, so no need for Timid. With the moves Scald, Toxic, Protect, and Rest, I just have Toxic and Protect combo just in case I need it, which the only time I used Toxic was during a failed attempt later on, and I didn't use Rest at all, and it should have been a move like Ice Beam, so that I could have had something on it to deal with Lance with. Next up we have Guppy the Keldeo with the Timid Nature and Leftovers. With the moves Reflect, Taunt, Sequence, and Scald, Reflect is used to help against Bruno, Taunt is used against Pokemon that was set up, and the rest is self-explanatory. Last but not least, we have Yusin the Suicune with the Bone Nature, so that we could be taking physical hits, obviously used for both Bruno and Lance. With the moves Scald, Ice Beam, Rest, and Carmine, we are using the Resto Chesto tactic, which there will be a moment where I did the biggest misclick in my entire career. But that won't come until later. We also won the Carmine set so that we could sweep a Suicune and take special hits. Ice Beam is for Lance and Scald is for Bernie. This is my first time doing a Monotype one, and I'm pretty nervous about it. But I hope you guys do enjoy the video, and if you guys have recommendations to me, please let me know down in the comments below. And so, without further ado, let's dive in and take on the Elite Four. First off, we have Loli, who I forgot to mention, but the Elite Four uses two different teams. And Loli has both an Ice-type team and a Water-type team. This time she uses her Ice-type team, which is a good thing because her Water-type team does have a Primal Kyogre in it. She leads with a Glaceon and a Alolan Ninetales, and we had to switch right into Jumpy Jump in order to get rid of the hail, simply because of the fact that we need our rain drizzling and our Glaceon has Slush Wash, which is Switch Swim for hail users, and also Glaceon is holding a choice specs. I decided to set up some Stealth Rocks for later on in the battle, and when Ninetales went for the Freeze Dry, I knew right then and there, but I had to take it out, the Ninetales fast. We survived the Freeze Dry with very low HP, and Glaceon missed the Blizzard on Buff Kip, so which means our Buff Kip gets to live a turn and take out the Ninetales with a critical hit liquidation. Unfortunately, Glaceon does land a Blizzard this time on Buff Kip, and it took it out, but Jumpy Jump avoided it and hits its Glaceon with Scald, which should have melted Glaceon in real life, but Pokemon logic, I guess. We decided to send out our Guppy up while Loli sends out a Water Marsh of her own, which is fine because we could switch into our own Water Marsh to hopefully take her washing machine out after we Secret Sword her with Guppy up. Her Rotom goes for the Thunder Wave on Guppy up, which is okay for us, but it does hinder Guppy up for later on in the battle, and Glaceon has to go for the Blizzard because it's locked into it due to having the choice specs. Water Marsh misses her Will-O-Wisp on our Shrinking, and we hit it with a Thunder and turning our machine into Crispy. And Glaceon decided to get its last bit of damage on us, and we go for the Blizzard before we took it out with a Secret Sword. Next up, she sends out Azumarill and Octofish. Azumarill has huge power and that is really threatening, but our Octofish has once again Slush Wash, which will benefit it in her very last Pokemon as well. And both our Pokemon take Stealth Rocks damage, which is great because our Octofish holds a Focus Sash, and we broke it with our Rocks. We outsped the Azumarill and we hit it with Thunder, and we took it out with a one-shot. Unfortunately, Octofish takes out Guppy up before we could take it out with a Secret Sword, and because of that, we are going to have a pretty tough time with our last Pokemon. We decided to send out Usean against our Mega Abomasnow, which has Slush Watch as its Mega ability in this game. We decided to try to get a burn off of Octofish and get a Carmine up on Usean, while Octofish goes for the Psychic Fangs on Shrinking, while her Abomasnow goes for the Giga Drain on Usean. But we took that because of the fact that Usean's special defense is pretty good, and we missed the Will-O-Wisp when we really need it. I mean, that doesn't matter that much, but still. And we did get a Carmine up, but Usean is pretty low on HP, and Abomasnow could just go for a Giga Drain again and kill Usean. We decided to go for the West just in case we go first with the rain up, after we switched Shrinking out for Jumpy Jump for us to get the Drizzle up and get rid of the Slush Rush ability. We are faster, and we went for the Resto Chesto, and Loli had a huge brain fart later on in a few seconds. So Octofish got some damage off on Usean, and she told her Abomasnow to go for the Blizzard instead of Giga Drain. Granted, yes, Usean was on pretty low HP, but still, I'm pretty sure Usean will still took that, even at that low HP, and with a Carmine up. It's a pretty dumb move by the AI, I would have just went for the Giga Drain. But anyways, we're just gonna use Scald on the Octofish to hope we get the burn, and I tried to use Toxic on the Mega Abomasnow. But the Scald doesn't get the burn, and Octofish hits my Frog with a Vicious Rend, and takes it out. And now, the Mega Abomasnow goes for the Giga Drain on Usean, which if it were to use it earlier, I probably would have been screwed. But the AI was dumb, and we get to live another day. I decided to send out Shrinking so that I can get the paint split off on the Abomasnow in order to get some damage. And we take out the Octofish so that now all we have to deal with is the Abomasnow. Abomasnow takes out UC, but that is perfectly fine because we still have a Nada in the back, and we could deal with the Abomasnow right here. We're just gonna hit it with a Dark Pulse and hope for a flinch, and Thunder and hope for a paralysis. And we just got the flinch off the Abomasnow, and now we could take it out with another Dark Pulse. But yeah, Loli isn't really too difficult, and now if she would have used her Water Team, maybe it would have been more harder because of the Primal Kyogre, but she didn't, and we clutch our first win. And also, after you win, you get the opportunity if you want to heal up your team, which I 100% would say yes to it. Next up we have Bruno, which going in, I thought Bruno was going to be our hardest opponent for this challenge, but little do I know that I would be proven wrong. But anyways, he leads off with an Urshifu, and I decided to go for the taunt. But apparently, I end up finding out that this Urshifu's moves are all attack moves, making my taunting entirely useless. But at the heat of the moment, I thought he would be using a setup move. But he went for the close combat and knocked me down to 72 HP, and with the leftovers that Guppy was munching, it went back up to 88 HP. So I decided to say, you know what, I might as well just set up a Reflect here and let Guppy go down. So I did just that, and the Urshifu went for the Surge Strike, and I survived with 56 HP, and it was a critical hit. And I was like, Guppy you boss! But little do I know that it was a multiple hitting move, and I presume it always gets a critical hit. And because of that realization, Guppy is taking your trips to Ponyland. I made the stupidest decision by setting out Jumpy Jump when I just found out later on in the battle, was that Urshifu's Rapid Strike style form is a Water and Fighting type. I thought it was a Fighting and Dark type, but that was its Single Strike style form. And don't worry, there will be a mistake about that later on, but for now, it went for the U-turn for some strange reason, and went into its most threatening Pokemon, Zacian. This thing is a beast, and it was a good thing that I went for the Scald, because we just got the burn off it, which is amazing because we just crippled this thing. And so because of that, I decided to make a safe switch and the buff keep it the rain up, so that we could make it evolve and take out the Zacian. Especially with the fact that we had the Swift Swim, but even with the burn, it's still a problem, especially with the fact that it just went for a Sword Dance. But because of Swift Swim, we outsped it and took the Zacian out with an Earthquake, and so his most threatening Pokemon is down. So now out comes the Urshifu again, and here comes the most stupidest move ever. I went for the Liquidation on the Urshifu, and not knowing that it was a Water and Fighting type, and when it said it's not very effective, I realized that it is a Water type. I did get its defense down despite that, and it hits me with a Surge Strike in the rain, but I just boosted for itself, but I managed to take them all even with a critical hit, mostly because I still had to Reflect up. And my Reflect was off at the worst time too, and I was like, you know what, I might as well just sack Buff Kip. So I tried to get an Earthquake off, but I had to prioritize the Aqua Jet, and it took Buff Kip out. Now knowing that it is a Water and Fighting type, I went into Shrinking and tried to go for the Thunder, which will take it out. But Urshifu decided to get its last bit of damage off on my Roll and Wash before we take it out, and it went for the close combat, and we survived with 67 HP and before we take it out. Next up is Scizor, and I contemplated if I would go for the Pain Split, but I decided to go for the Will-O-Wisp instead, and the Scizor went for the Bullet Punch for some stupid reason, and we took that easy, even with holding the Life Orb, and we landed the Will-O-Wisp. I was like, yeah, this Scizor is good as dead. So I decided to go for the Pain Split here so I could gain more HP back. I decided to switch into Jumpy Jump so I could get the rain back up, and the Scizor just kept going for Bullet Punch. And I was just like, Bruno, did you just get hit on the head with a stick again? Because you're playing pretty dumb here. I decided to take it out with a Scald, and Bruno finally got his act together and went for the superpower, which did a pretty good number despite the fact that it was burned and holding the Life Orb. But we took it out, and next up was Hawlucha, and I decided to sack off Jumpy Jump here so I could get a safe switch into something and revenge kill it, and also because I have no need for it anymore for this battle. I sent out Usein, which could take a hit from our Lucha, but it went for the Sky attack, and it had the Power Hub, so it's fully charged. But we took that hit, and we revenge killed it with a Scald because of the rain and the special defense slower due to using close combat on my Jumpy Jump. Next up we have Blaziken, which I don't know why he sent it out because it doesn't have Thunder Punch, so I don't know why it's here, and we outsped it, which I was even more surprised because Blaziken is a really fast Pokemon. And we one-shot it for Scald, and lastly, it's the Lucario, which is going to be its Mega Pokemon. And this is where I thought I was going to lose here, because it one-shot me for close combat, and all I have left is a little green washing machine and a 4 HP Ninja. But my Ninja is weak to fighting types, and my Ninja is not bulky at all. And so my odds of winning this battle are incredibly stacked right now. And so I tried to set out my Shrinking and hopefully get it to Thunder off and to paralyze it, but it went for the close combat and took out my washing machine. And this is where I think I was going to lose. But then the AI went for the Bullet Punch, and I was like, Bruno, you idiot! Because we could have lost here, but Bruno drew. He drew the entire match, went for the Bullet Punch, and we took it out with a Scald. Against all odds, we managed to clutch the victory against Bruno, who I thought was going to be the most difficult Elite Four person for us to deal with. And we won the battle. But little do I know, my perspective of that claim is all gonna change. Because it's Agatha who is the most difficult opponent of this one. It took me 5 tries in order to beat this woman. I'm only gonna be showing you guys my first failed attempt because it was a pretty close fight. And I did make a mistake in the battle that probably would have saved me the battle but didn't. And also there will be another mistake later on and another failed attempt against Agatha, but I will tell you guys when that happens, or when we get to it for that matter. Anyways, she leads off with Grimmsnarl, which has Flameshift for its ability, and so I tried to set up a Carmine here, but she went for the taunt, and now I can't use it. And then she went for the Light Screen, and I was like, she probably holds them like clay. And indeed she does, and so my Scald is going to be doing nothing to this thing, and we did get to burn off it, and I was contemplating if I should switch out, but I decided to stay in, and just try to get some Scald damage off it. And obviously it wasn't doing anything due to the Light Screen, and it went for the Spirit Break, and it didn't do anything, and it lowered my special attack. And now for the biggest mistake in this battle, that probably might have saved me this battle. I thought Spirit Break was a Dark-type move, and so I switched right into Hinata in order to resist it. But little do I know that Spirit Break is not a Dark-type move, but a Fairy-type move. And I didn't know that until it said it's super effective on screen. I facepalmed so hard, but I made that mistake and it cost me this battle. And my special attack drops as well. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get some damage off of Hinata and sack it off. And so I did. I went for the Scald, did little damage, and Hinata died to a Spirit Break. And so, the Pokemon that I need to take out Agatha with is unfortunately down already due to my stupid move of sending it out on a Spirit Break. I sent out my Buff Kip and Mega Evolved in order to go for the Stealth Fox. And I only went for it because I thought Grimmsnarl was going to go for the Reflect. But instead, it went for the Taunt, and then it went for the Reflect. And in my mind, I was like, Agatha is making extremely good predictions. Grimmsnarl went for the Reflect, and I finally took it out with Liquidation, but that was only just her first Pokemon. Next up, she sends out Mimikyu, and I was like, I gotta take this thing out fast or else she will sweep me with it. I was thinking of switching out, but I decided to stay in and try to get rid of its Disguise ability, especially since it's going to go for the Sword Stance this time. I went for the Liquidation in order to pop the disguise ability, and since I am slower than it already got a sword stance off, I decided to switch into Jumpy Jump and set up the rain and just sack it off. So I did that and it went for the play rough, and somehow I managed to take a play rough from it and the light screen wore off for Agatha. I decided to go for the protect here in order to try to wear off the reflect turns, and it was going to go for the Shadow Sneak and kill my Toad. And so I was like, just take out my Poly Toad already. So I tried to go for the rest, and it killed my Toad with a Shadow Sneak. I was thinking of who to switch out to, and I decided to send out Shrinking in order to get Mimikyu paralyzed with Thunder, and also to get the reflect to wear off. Mimikyu went for the play rough, and I surprisingly took that at 34 HP. Hit the Thunder, obviously because it's raining. If it would have missed in the rain, I would call hacks. And we didn't get it paralyzed, and Shrinking is about to go down here. And so I just let it go down here to a priority Shadow Sneak, and the reflect is still up. And so I just sent out Buff Kit because I know that it could take it out now, even with the reflect up. And I'm faster due to Swift Swim, and so Agatha knew that and also told her Pikachu plushie to go for the Shadow Sneak just to get some damage before I took out her Mimikyu. We only took out 2 of her Pokemon, and I only have 3 Pokemon left at this point. But finally, the reflect wore off, and so I thought this could be my comeback, right? Well, no. Because she sent out her Marshadow and crushed all my hopes and dreams. Because this Marshadow was holding a Focus Sash. I decided to go for the liquidation, and Marshadow, like I said, it held a Focus Sash and survived. And just to make matters worse, it went for the Spectral Thief, and it ended up getting a critical hit on me. And we survived with 20 HP, and I realized that this thing was going to have Shadow Sneak and kill me. And so, with my Drizzling Fog dead, I just let my Steroid Amphibian Pokemon go down to a Shadow Sneak, and just in time for the rain to stop. I sent out my Guppy up because I want to save using for later in case I want to go for the Carmine, because remember, Spectral Thief steals all your stats and gives it right to Marshadow. And Marshadow went for the Spectral Thief, and it shows why it's in Uber's tier, and it did over half to my pony, just for me to take it out with some boiling water, in order to make Marshmallow Tea with. No, seriously, Marshmallow Tea actually does exist. Google it up. Next up is Dragapult, and I knew that Guppy Up is going down, so I tried to set up a Reflect here, but this Dragapult is a special attacker, and it took out our Guppy Up, and it left us down to our U-Team. I tried to set up a Carmine and try to sweep, but due to the fact that it took me 5 tries, you guys already know where this is going. Dragapult went for the Shadow Ball, and it did a ton of damage, and I tried to set up a Carmine, and now I tried to rest, and we survived with 13 HP, and we went for the rest, and restored us to 4 HP, and we still have the Chesto Berry. So I tried to get another Carmine off, and she switched right into Gengar here, and I tried to go for the Scald, where she Mega Evolved into a Mega Gengar, and then went for the Sludge Wave. We took that pretty well at +2, and we hit Gengar with the Scald, and we almost took it out. And it went for the Sludge Wave one more time before we took out her Mega. And now she's going to send back out the Dragapult, and I want to try and use a rest here to get back up to full, and hope that Shadow Ball doesn't do a lot at +2. And we could deal with her last Pokemon. After 3 turns of being asleep and taking 3 Shadow Balls with no special defense slower, we woke up at 73 HP, went straight for the Ice Beam, and took out the Dragapult. And at that point, I thought there still might be some hope for me left, and maybe we might clutch a win. Her last Pokemon is Aegislash, and I had to hope that we get the Scald Burn or Scald Crit. And we managed to get the Scald Burn, and it was great. And all we had to do was take 1 hit from this Aegislash, and we could take it out, and we beat Agatha. But it went for the Shadow Claw, and it took out Suicune without a critical hit. And just so you guys know, this Aegislash was burned, and it was holding the Life Orb. It was a very close battle, and it came right down to hoping we could at least take one hit, but to no avail. And now fast forward to where we get to win off of Agatha. Now for our 5th attempt against Agatha, I decided to lead with Jumpy Jump, and she leads with a Gengar. But don't be fooled, this is actually a Zoroark. And I knew it was going to go for the taunt, mostly because I fought against this team before during one of my failed attempts. So I went for the Scald, and we did get the burn right off it. And so I went for the prediction that she will switch out her Zoroark, just like during a previous failed attempt. And so I predicted that, and I switched right into Buff Kip with the rain up, and my prediction was correct. As she switched her Zoroark out right into Poltergeist, and we could just go for the liquidation and one-shot this Poltergeist. And now we'll get to the part of the battle when I lost during my failed attempt against this team. She sent back out her Zoroark, and the previous time I should have just went for the Stealth Rock, because she has a Marshadow with a Focus Sash in the back, and if I would have set up the rocks, I would have taken out the Marshadow, and there might have still been some chance that I could have won that time. This time, I know what to do. I set up the Stealth Rock, and the Zoroark just goes straight for the taunt, when it was already too late, and should have just went ahead and go for the attack. Because I'm gonna take it out with an Ice Punch, and down goes the Zoroark, and in the process, we get ourselves a pointless critical hit. Next up is Mimikyu, and for some strange reason, she decides to go for the Shadow Sneak instead of going for the Play Rough, for some reason. We just break her disguise, and now we could take it out, but she decides to get at least some chip damage with Shadow Sneak before we take it out with a liquidation. Next up is Marshadow, and I'm finally like, yes, I finally could take you out easily. And now with the Focus Sash broken, we could one-shot it, and it just goes for the Shadow Sneak for damage, and down goes the Marshadow with the liquidation in the rain. Unfortunately for us, the rain does go down, and next up is Aegis Slash, and after a little bit of thinking, I decided to switch into a Nada to take out the Aegis Slash, because I knew that it's gonna use a Ghost type move. And it did. It went for the Shadow Ball, and it did over half because of the fact that the Nada isn't bulky at all, and the Aegis Slash holds the Fly Form. But that doesn't matter because we went for the Dark Pulse, and Aegis Slash did not go for the King Shield, and we obviously one-shot some Aegis Slash in Sword form. Lastly is her Mega Gengar, and we still have all 6 of our Pokemon left. And so I am very confident that we got this battle. Unless something screwy happens, we beat Agatha. Agatha Mega evolves her Gengar and took out our Nada, but Nada did its thing, and now we could win right here. I sent out Jumpy Jump, and I want this Gengar to take out my Frog, because once she does that, we got this battle with our Buff Kip. She tries to set up a nasty plot so that she could sweep my team, but I just went for the Scald damage, and it got a critical hit, and it knocked it right down to red. And Gengar went for the Thunderbolt with a +2 nasty plot, and it took out Jumpy Jump. But because of my calm nature, we actually survived the +2 Thunderbolt from a Mega Gengar and took it out with a Scald. And Jumpy Jump, of all odds, actually gave us the win against Agatha. I should point this out here before I forget, but during one of my failed attempts against Agatha, I did use Toxic against the Dragonball, and it got it down to yellow before I took it out with Ice Punch from Buff Kip. I just wanted to point this out here because I did use Toxic once, and it did work. But it was during a failed attempt that I cut out. And now, we beat Agatha, and we finally could advance to the last Elite Four member. Last member in Elite Four, we have Lancelot. For me, going into this battle, Lance is like 50-50 for me. One half, I have Ice-type moves, and I could count on Lance's team. But on the other half of the coin, it could end very badly if he were to sweep me here, because dragons are a very powerful type. He leads with the Garchomp, which is a really powerful Pokemon, and so we tried to see if we can get a Scald burn here. Garchomp sends up the Stealth Fox here, and we went for the Scald, wishing for a burn, and my wish was granted, and Garchomp got burnt by Scald, and we cut Garchomp's attack in half. And so I checked my Buff Kip's defense and see if we could take a hit really well from a Garchomp that is currently burned, and Swampert's defense is 184 with max IVs. And so I decided that I think I could take it really well, and I switched right into Buff Tip, and Garchomp went straight for the Sword Stance. But I'm still confident we could take it out, but first we get to set up some Stealth Rocks of our own, because I'm confident that I could take a +2 for Garchomp. Both quick at full health. And indeed, I did. I took it at 129 HP, and just go straight for the Ice Punch. Very aware that we're going to get hit by the Rough Skin ability, but I just wanted to go straight for the kill here, and we took out the Garchomp. Next up is Dragapult, and with the Stealth Rocks damage, I was confident that we could take it out with an Ice Punch. But it survived, and I was like, how the heck did it survive that? And then went for the Dragon Dart and took out our Buff Tip, but it took itself out with the Life Orb damage, so it was a tie. I don't know what Lance is going to send out next, and so I went to Shrinking, and Lance sends out a Draco Soul. I tried to go for the Will-O-Wisp, but Draco Soul outspeeds me and hits me with a Bolt Beak, and then one-shot my washing machine. And this is where I start to get very concerned here. And it's that Draco Soul could sweep my entire team by itself. So I had to think of who is the fastest member of my team. And Hinata, the Greninja, is the fastest one I have. And if Draco Soul outspeeds it, then I'm basically screwed. I send out my Hinata and I try to go for the Ice Beam, and Lance decides to withdraw that Draco Soul and switch right into Melmetal. And so Ice Beam doesn't do anything, and we got to switch Hinata out in order to prevent it from going down, because she might be our only chance to take out the Draco Soul. I switched into Useed, and Melmetal went for the Double Iron Bash. I guess it went for that because of the Protein ability, turned Hinata into an Ice type. But honestly, it didn't do a whole lot, but it was over 100 damage, despite the fact that it was not very effective move against me. I decided to go straight for the Carmine, hoping we could at least take one hit from it. And it went for the Thunder Punch, and I was like, well, Useed is dead. But we survived with 13 HP, and we get the Resto Chesto off, and it went for the Double Iron Bash again, and so I was looking pretty nice right now. So I just went for the Scald, and I underestimate Melmetal's special defense, because it took it pretty well, and it hit me with a Thunder Punch, and we took it with 41 HP, and we went for the Scald, hoping we could take it out. And it survived with only a few HP, and we got the burn off it. And it went for the Double Iron Bash, and it took us out, which to be expected because Melmetal's attack is pretty good, even with the burn. And we were very low on HP, but it was yet again a double knockout. With getting a double knockout twice, it's pretty epic, honestly. But now we could safely switch right back into Hinata, and here comes Draco Sword again. And there goes Draco Sword again. And now here comes Dialga. But not any Dialga, but Primal Dialga, because of the Adamant Orb. Which I got to say, Primal Dialga looks really dope, to be honest here. So we get an Ice Beam out of it, and it did a pretty good number, and that's when I realized that Draco Soul can't outspeed me, and once again, I have to save Hinata, because it's basically my win condition at this point. And so I switched right into Jumpy Jump here, because honestly, it is my least important Pokemon on my team right now, and if someone had to go down here, it had to be her. I sent it out to basically try to get as much damage as possible, and it took a Flash Cannon right to the face, and I outspeed it because I know this thing does have War, and so I believe it's going to use it because I outsped it, and I got a Scald off. It did nothing, but it did get a burn off, and it did use War. And it warped right back into Hinata, which means I had to switch right back into Jumpy Jump here and take a pulse from a dragon to the face and get hit by another pulse from the dragon to the face, and it took out my frog. But now, with Primal Dialga pretty low right now, I think it's time to send out Hinata and destroy this thing. I went for the Ice Beam, and we took out his Primal, but we still have Draco Soul to worry about, and now he sends back out Draco Soul, and my hunch that we could outspeed it was correct, because we hit our Ice Beam first and took out the Draco Soul, leaving Lance down to his final Pokemon. Lance's final Pokemon is a Mega Salamence, and I have to hope I can outspeed it, because my last Pokemon is Guppyup, and a nearly late double edge will Oko it, and Guppy Up has nothing to hit it with. So let's Mega Evolve the Salamence and we outspeed it, hit it with a 4 times effective Ice Beam, and we took out the Salamence, winning us this battle, and we survived Life Orb damage with only 3 HP. And now we're down to the champion battle, and we are almost done with our first Elite Four Monotype challenge. But now for the biggest misclick of all time, but it's gonna be coming up. It's now time for the champion battle against my rival, who I decided to name Toilet. He leads off with the Crocodile going into the battle there, are 2 Pokemon that I'm worried about, but for right now, we have Crocodile. I got the rain up while this thing lowers my attack, which is pointless because we're a special attacker, and I should have gone for the Scald because I should have known that I was going to go for the Taunt. But that was my own mistake. But now I went for the Scald, but now Crocodile went for the Stealth Rock, and it doesn't even matter anyways because Crocodile is holding a Focus Sash. And so it probably would have gone for the Stealth Rocks anyways, but I wouldn't have taken any damage the next turn, and we didn't get the burn. But that doesn't matter anyways because it went for the Wicked Blow and it always gets a critical hit. But we survived it and finally took out the Crocodile after taking damage due to my mistake of using Toxin. But that wasn't the biggest mistake yet, so keep that in mind. Now he sends out one of the 2 Pokemon that I was worried about, and that was Darkrai. Darkrai is a really tough Pokemon, and I was thinking if I should switch out to save Jumping Jump for later, but I decided to sack it off, and we could get a safe switch into something for this Darkrai. Darkrai went for one of my most favorite Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Dark Hole, and it doesn't destroy all Pokemon in the field. It just destroyed my own. I was contemplating if I should send out Buff Kip because of Swift Swim, or Copy Up because of that Secret Sword, and I decided to send out my Pony and hit the Nightmare Pokemon itself with a sword. Darkrai went straight for the Nasty Plot, and it was perfect because I thought he basically drew, and I went for the kill with Secret Sword. And it also has the Focus Sash. And I started to wonder if this thing carries Thunderbolt. And apparently my Wonder Bread was the correct brand because Darkrai attempted to turn my pony into Crispy with a Thunderbolt +2 and not Stab. And Guppy Up just got sent to Oblivion. But this gives me a safe switch into Buff Kip and take out the Darkrai with Liquidation and get rid of this thing. Next up is Ditto, and now I'm dealing against my own Buff Kip. And also, don't underestimate this thing, because Imposter is a really good ability, and Ditto is a good Pokemon for competitive play. I was thinking that I should switch out, but because Guppy Up is dead, I decided to try to at least get some good damage off Ditto before it took me out. We both hit each other with liquids, and because Ditto is faster than me, it's going to take me out. But we also got his Ditto down to red, and get a safe switch right into Shrinking to resist all of Ditto's moves. But despite being resisted, Liquidation did a ton of damage because Mega Swampert attack is amazing. But we took it out, and now here comes the second Pokemon that I was worried about, which is Groudon. But not just any Groudon, but Primal Groudon. And I was very nervous that this thing was going to have Solar Beam, but it doesn't because it went for the Stone Edge. And this is where Pain Split is here, so that I could deal with this Groudon. But now it becomes a shuffle between Pain Split and Stone Edge until my Shrinking gets taken out, because even with Pain Split, I can't stun to it due to Ground type, and I can't Hydro Pump it because of Death Swing Land, and so it was bound to happen, and my Shrinking goes down. But Pain Split got Groudon very low, so that we could go for the Grass Knot with Anata, because Groudon is a very heavy Pokemon, and take it out. That's his 2 most threatening Pokemon out of the way. And next up is Togekiss. And now Togekiss is a very bulky Pokemon, and I know this thing carries Aura Spear, but I decided to go straight for the Ice Beam, get some good damage off on it, and get a safe switch right into Using here, and set up Calm Mind in order to sweep. And now that gets taken out with a Flamethrower, and now comes Using to save the day. Toilet decided for some reason to switch right into Blastoise in order to resist Suicune's moves, but we did manage to get a +1 Calm Mind. Toilet Mega Evolves his Blastoise, and I outsped it and got off a +2 Calm Mind, and it went for the Aura Spear, and we took the Aura Spear really well. Now it became a 2-turn battle between Aura Spear and Scald, which I didn't get a single burn, mind you, until Mega Blastoise went for the Shell Smash. And now it's going to outspeed me and going to try to take out my Suicune. I have to try to get a rest off in order to go to full health here. And I went for the Aura Spear, and we took it! We got the rest off, woke up with the Chester Berry, -1 special defense, and we could take it out with one more Scald, and all we have to deal with is a low HP Togekiss left. But I ended up clicking way too fast on my controller and accidentally went for the rest. And that's what cost me the entire battle. I was so peeved after this battle because I had victory on the palm of my hands. But because I clicked too fast, that cost me the battle. Round 2 against Toilet, and this time I know what to do. I went straight for the Scald because I knew that I was going to go for the taunt, and it lives with its Focus Sash. And we get the clutch burn against it, taking out the Crocodile before it can set up Stealth Loss. That is a really good sign right there. Next up, it's Mega Blastoise with its Mega Launcher ability, and I was thinking of switching it out into Guppy Up, but I decided that I really don't need Jumpy Jump anymore, and I decided to try to get some damage off the Skull, hoping for a burn here. After we get hit with an Aura Spear, and we went for the Skull, and we got the burn. While it won't do much because Blastoise is a special attacker, I could at least keep doing chip damage each turn. Toilet, knowing that I'm going to sack off Jumpy Jump, decides to go for the Shell Smash against me so that he could sweep my whole team. But I got more pretty good damage off of Scald and burn damage on the Blastoise. Now Blastoise is going to kill my Jumpy Jump with +2 Aura Spear, Mega Launcher boosted. And the Calm Nature came into clutch once again, and we took that Aura Spear just to get more Scald damage and a burn damage. And we almost took out the Blastoise, but the taunt had just wore off, and he could just go for the Protect and take out his Mega. I was expected to sack Jumpy Jump, but I managed to clutch out the Blastoise. It took it out, and we still have 6 Pokemon remaining. Next up is Togekiss, and I decided to let Jumpy Jump go. It did its purpose, and it could take a pretty good rest now. Because now it could go into Buff Kip and do really good damage to this Togekiss with Ice Punch. I said this before, but Togekiss is bulky, and so it would take this hit. I was right, it took that at half, and we got the Togekiss frozen solid, and we could take it out with Liquidation. And I was in a really good position. Until the rain stopped, and now out comes his Darkrai. Darkrai went for a nasty plot so that he could get the booms out on me, but we got some damage, and what I mean by some, I mean closer to actually taking it out. And then Darkrai hit me with Dark Hole, and I took it with 22 HP, and we take it out with a Liquidation. And I am very surprised that we actually managed to take that Dark Hole at +2, and it's a Darkrai. Next up is Primal Groudon, and I decided to sack Buff Kip now in order to get a safe switch into Drinking. Buff Kip did insanely well, and it's one of my most favorite team members of this team. We did the same moves as last time, we just kept going for Stone Edge and Pain Split respectively, until Drinking gets taken care of, and that we could get a safe switch into Anata, and take out the Groudon with Grass Knot. But now his last Pokemon is Ditto, and we could finish it off with Guppy Up, because Anata doesn't have a move that is super effective against Guppy Up. Well, except for Grass Knot. Ditto apparently was holding a Choice Scarf, and it went for the Ice Beam to take out Hinata, but it's locked into it, and we could get the win here. We just sent out Guppy Up here, and we took an Ice Beam, and we took care of it with a Secret Sword. But yeah, we just completed our first Monotype Elite Four challenge. I decided to use a Water type team because it is one of my most favorite type teams in all Pokemon, and I'm very excited to use this team with the wide pool of Pokemon that I have. Now, is this game harder than Emerald Kaizo? Well, This game is more competitive because if you know how to EV train your Pokemon and build a good team with good movesets and strategy, you might have a pretty good chance of winning. MO Kaizo has a lot more things stacked against you. Examples are not allowed to just set up weather effects are auto in gyms, really good Pokemon like Sableye but got its stats buff, but you can only get after you beat the Elite Four, and you get really good TMs during the post game. Weather Correct gives you everything before the Elite Four, other than a few legendaries, of course. I should also point this out here, but at the time of recording this video, Supercell didn't put in an Elite Four rematch, and so once you beat it, you can no longer challenge the Elite Four, and so if you're doing a Monotype challenge against the Elite Four, I highly recommend save stating before you enter the Elite Four, so that you could keep doing it over and over again. I really hope you guys do enjoy the video, and I'll see you all next time for the next Monotype challenge run.